Showtime is here, no time to fear. Karel is so near because Showtime is here. So on with the show, let's give it a go. Karel is the one that you need to know. Now it's Showtime.
It is New Year's Eve. That's it. 2025 is about to be over. In fact, in some parts of the world, it already is a memory. And what were those memories? We're going to talk about 2025 in review.
Uncensored, unfiltered, unhinged. It's the Karel Cast. Listen daily on your favorite streaming service.
It is the Karel Cast. I am Karel. Happy New Year's Eve. Depending upon what time zone you're in, it could already be New Year's. I am so glad to be here with you on this New Year's Eve. It's the morning for me, 10 a.m. But, you know, for y'all, whenever you're listening, or if you're listening in another country, it could be night or it could be tomorrow. In Australia, if you're in Australia or China or other places, it is already the new year. And what a year. I got to tell you. What a frickin' year this was. You know, I wish I drank because it would be a good night to get drunk tonight. Given everything that's still going on right up until New Year's Eve. I know I didn't want to talk politics, and I'm not gonna. But, you know, the Epstein files and, you know, the kerfuffle around all that. And, you know, and I haven't really addressed the Epstein files on the show. I haven't. Because I think it's much ado about nothing, quite frankly. I mean, the deadline came and some got released, some didn't, and, you know, redacted this and blah, 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 that, and, court proceeding this and whatever. But I don't need those files because they are one of the biggest stories of 2025, which we'll be talking the biggest stories of 2025. I don't need those files to, you know, convince me that rich white men in particular, rich straight white men in particular, avail themselves of younger women, and sometimes too young. And it's been going on since the dawn of time. I fully believe Donald Trump did it. I fully believe Alan Dershowitz did it. I fully believe most everyone in the files did it. I don't know if Bill Clinton did because Epstein himself said that he never did. Epstein himself said that Clinton, you know, was never a part of it. But who knows? Maybe he was. I don't know. But I don't need the files to show me that Trump is a criminal. I already know that. E. Jean Carroll proved that the man does not respect women. The way that he talks to women reporters proves that he doesn't. I know I'm talking politics. I said I wouldn't. But you know, the man does not respect women. And so he certainly wouldn't respect boundaries with women, including age. And as we look back on that story this year and all the hoopla around it, what has the release of, you know, some of the files changed? Is MAGA turned against him? No, not over this. They're turning more against him about the economy. You know, because they forgive him having sex with a 15-year-old or 16-year-old or 17-year-old. They would literally forgive him for that. And I don't need the files to tell me that he did it. You know, I fully believe he did. Nothing will change my mind, and that's that. But it is New Year's Eve. Now, I will not be awake at midnight. I do the Irish New Year. I'll be at the pub at 3. I'm probably going to go to Rira. Go to the pub at 3, celebrate at 4 when it's, New Year's. 4 o'clock this afternoon is New Year's in Ireland, and be home by 5. Because I think New Year's Eve is amateur night at the Apollo. I think that people get as drunk as they can, as fast as they can, and then they go out and drive right after midnight. And this is Las Vegas. There's going to be fireworks at midnight. People are going to be blitzed out of their minds. I don't want to be on the road. I don't want to be out there in that. I would rather be at home in bed with Ember because tomorrow New Year's Day is just as important to me as New Year's Eve. If I stay up till 1 or 2 in the morning, then my New Year's Day is going to be shot. I'm going to feel like crap on the first day of the new year, and I don't want to do that. So I do the Irish New Year. You should do it with me. Today at 4 o'clock, celebrate New Year's. It's New Year's in Ireland. Go to a pub. There's a pub everywhere. There's a pub everywhere. Everywhere you go, you can find an Irish pub. All right, we are going to talk about some of the biggest stories of the year. Reflect. Reflections of. We're also going to talk about the best movies and television of the year and the best music of the year. And I'd love all of your comments down below about what I got right, what I missed, what you thought was the best or biggest story, what you thought was the best movie or TV show. I'd love all of your comments down below. So please put them there, okay? At youtube.com/ReallyKarel or Patreon, patreon.com/ReallyKarel.
If you're not visiting reallykarel.com daily, you're missing out. Get the podcast videos and the blog, including recipes, at reallykarel.com. That's really KAREL.com.
Showtime is here, no time to fear. Karel is so near because showtime is here. So on with the show, let's give it a go. Karel is the one that you need to know.
All right. Well, 2025. First of all, it's December 31st, January 6th. Riots, treason, insurrection. That wasn't a story from this last year, but the fact that Trump pardoned a majority of those people certainly is a story from this year, because he did it this year. And the fact that he took office this January, a big, huge story. In fact, it is the number one political story out there. Trump retakes the White House. I don't believe he won. And now I sound like him, but I just don't believe he won. I don't. I believe it was manipulated. I really do. I just don't think there were that many stupid, angry people to put him back in office. I don't. I saw the support for Kamala. I saw the conventions. He was barely filling seats while she was selling out huge arenas. I don't believe that he legally won. I think somehow Elon Musk or someone else manipulated the votes. Now, you can agree with me on that. You can disagree with me. You can think I'm crazy, whatever. But I don't think he won. I do not think he is a legitimate president. But he did return to the White House and just reshaped public policy within minutes, and not for the best. Not for the best. I mean, he had stacks of executive orders on day one, many of which are still being challenged in the courts. There's too many to even go down. I think he's already signed like 200. So there's too many to even go over. But the first two big stories to come out of the Trump White House was his war on DEI, meaning gays, lesbians, trans, bi, and of course, ICE. Those, of all the stories of 2025, I think the two biggest, and it's just been a year of one huge story after another. Epstein files, ICE doing all of this. We had natural disasters galore, just a year of big news. I think the biggest news was when the U.S. government turned a division of law enforcement against its people. Not just ICE, but the National Guard. I think those are two huge stories from this year. And not because of what they were doing. In other words, what the National Guard was sent in to do, or what ICE was sent out to do. It wasn't really that. It's the fact that he was using them as his brown shirts, as his own private army. He was using the National Guard to inflict his will on blue states. And then he was using ICE to literally harm legal immigrants, U.S. citizens, immigrants that had no criminal records. He was not getting rid of the worst among us. he was not just getting rid of, quote, illegals. He really started a war on anybody not white. And it was a sad year to watch the news. It really was. Didn't social media and the news just depress you this year? If we're being honest, on New Year's Eve, every time you go to social media and see ICE yet again raiding someplace that they shouldn't be, tackling mothers or fathers to the ground, snatching 7-year-olds, taking babies. 2025 and the news stories of 2025 made me ashamed. Never more in any year that I've ever lived in my life have I been more ashamed to be an American than 2025. Trump brought great shame upon the United States. We could go through the minutia of each of his policies and the stories and all of that, but the fact is they're all shameful. He brought a new level of shame and condemnation to the United States like we had never seen. That's another big story of 2025, alienating our allies, painting the EU as not our friend, siding with Vladimir Putin, a Russian dictator. There are so many groundbreaking stories in 2025. I would need a week to go through them all. Well, I've had a year, and we did go through them all. His tariffs, those are another big story of the year, because they led to the exact opposite of what he pledged. He pledged to bring down prices. He pledged to bring down the soaring, inflation of Joe Biden. And instead, things went up. And just a week ago, 2 weeks ago now, he did that 18 minutes in the Oval Office, literally yelling at America to try to convince them that black was white and that up was down. He was deranged. If anyone has Trump derangement syndrome, it's him. And so it was a year of broken promises by him. He didn't, keep any of his promises. It was a year of authoritarian rule, fascism, and oligarchy like never in the history of the United States, ever. 2025 will be remembered as the year fascism and authoritarianism came to the United States. Again, possibly the biggest story of the year. The United States sinks into authoritarianism because no one ever thought we would. No one ever believed that would happen to us. And yet, it has. It has completely happened to us. And God, when I just look back on everything we've talked about, the DEI culture war, and how quick companies were to jump on board. Not all, Costco and a few others said no. But so many companies were fair weather friends to gays, to minorities, to immigrants, to women. And they jumped right on board with his anti-DEI policies. I don't know why in 2025, when we look back, I wonder what people will say. Why did he want, because they act like DEI doesn't mean Americans. Diversity means just including more Americans in America. That's all it means. Equity, inclusion. It just means including more, giving more people a chance. Why in 2025 would anybody, let alone a U.S. president, want to exclude instead of include? Wants to be less diverse instead of more, and want a system of inequality instead of equality. Again, I think his war on DEI will be one of the biggest stories of the year when we look back on 2025. You know, there will be some good news stories here, but when I was compiling this, I realized all the shit you and I have had to deal with. You know, when you sort of, it's like my music retrospective show that I did on Christmas. Not that many of you saw it, but the ones that did, I hadn't ever looked at my musical career in one spot. And when I did on that show, I realized I've had a musical career. And to see it all in one place was overwhelming and made me thrilled. Well, when we look at 2025 and we see all the things Donald Trump has done as a list in one place, I don't know how you and I survived it. I really don't. I don't know how you and I got through this fucking year. Because when you see all the things we've had to deal with dating all the way back to January, because he hit the ground going. We didn't get a break. It wasn't like he started in March or April or in the middle of the year. No. He started being evil on day one. And so we have been bombarded since day one with foolishness. The war on DEI, university and cultural institutions faced all kinds of pressures. Litigation and compliance disputes escalated. Media cycles treated these battles as a constant storyline. They still do. We're still fighting them. It's nowhere near over. He's got 3 more years. His war on DEI continues. ICE isn't being recalled. You know, tonight's New Year's Eve. Tomorrow, New Year's Day, ICE isn't suddenly going to stop what it's been doing. A lot of these stories are going to carry right into 2026. I don't know about you, but I don't find that to be a good thing. He did shift federal marijuana policy. I believe he signed that. I don't think they made a big deal about it, but I guess I could Google because I fully believe that he reclassified marijuana. Did Trump reclassify pot? Remember 2 weeks ago we talked about it? Trump signs executive order fast-tracking reclassification of cannabis. So yes, that's a big story. That's a huge story. You know, it may reduce barriers to medical research, reshape enforcement priorities. States and employers are watching for regulatory follow-through. It reignites the debate over legalization versus incremental reform. But more importantly, it is no longer on par with, heroin. So that was a big deal that he did. I'm not mad at him for doing that. That's the one thing in 2025, unless he drops dead tonight. We have till midnight. But short of him dropping dead before the ball drops, the one thing he did in 2025 to reclassify pot was one good thing. Can you all think of any other good thing he did? Anybody? You can leave it down below in the comments or over at Patreon at patreon.com/ReallyCarell. Can any of you think about one other thing that he did that was actually good? I can't. But the reclassifying of pot, that was good. Number 5, immigration enforcement and detention politics stay at a boiling point. Yes. Civil liberty debates, detention and enforcement policies, court rulings that create whiplash. 1 minute they can do this, 1 minute they can't, 1 minute they can, this court says this, but this court says that. But again, the big story there is ICE and the turning on your own people. That was something. He said this year that he stopped more wars than he didn't. A lot of those wars are still raging, by the way. The Congo is still going on. Taiwan still going on. Ukraine still going on. Israel still lobbing missiles. But certainly that was a huge story that bled into 2025. The genocide created by Israel. That was a huge story. Global leadership changes, protests, and coups reshaped national politics. Yeah. Several countries experienced contentious leadership transitions and unrest. Gen Z-led political energy became a recurring narrative. Instability affected migration, markets, and security markets. Domestic politics increasingly played out on global platforms. Remember the kids in Nepal that threw out their leader and burned down their house? That was something. Ireland got a new president, a woman president, in 2025. Michael D. Higgins no longer the president there. Lots of regime changes, lots of world shifting. And then Venezuela. That's a story that might be a big story in 2026 because he's still giving war vibes. All right, we are talking the biggest stories of the year, not just from politics, but we'll cover entertainment and music and all of that on this New Year's Eve, where you're going to stay safe and you're going to stay sane and you're not going to put yourself in any danger because I need you. Okay, I need you. So, yeah. All right, let me look up some other stories here. Oh, extreme weather. Yes. Extreme weather became a political fight over preparedness. Natural disasters. We had plenty. Boy, oh my God, looking at all this, how are we even here? You should party tonight. I'm telling you that. Or this afternoon or whatever. Lord.
Patreon is the way to show you care. Subscribe today if you dare. Keep the show on there. Patreon is the way. Now it's showtime.
You know, another huge story of 2025 was the politicization of science, where RFK Jr. just started making policies rooted in nothing but politics. Nothing. Where being a vegan became woke. Taking a vaccine became, I don't want to say, arbitrary, but, all of a sudden, vaccines that people were told to get these vaccines. Suddenly it's like, oh, I don't need it. The government says I don't need it. It really became the year where science and intellect, I don't want to say dissolved, but moved out of the United States. He took apart every major climate change consortium in the country. So we no longer lead the way in climate science. He allowed RFK Jr. to cast aside decades and decades of science. Tell you fat's good for you. Eat more bacon, eat more eggs. 2025, more than any other year in American history, was the year that we regressed intellectually. We went backwards because of our disregard for science and allowing the politicization of science. That possibly the worst thing that could have happened in 2025. No longer respecting knowledge. No longer respecting intellect. In fact, making smart people seem like pariahs. Making intellectual. And anyone that disagreed with him. Like the lady that didn't want to vote to rename the Kennedy Center the Trump Center. So they muted her during the vote. They didn't let her vote. It wasn't a unanimous vote. Silencing his enemies. A president has never done that before. Malicious prosecutions of Letitia James, James Comey, and others. What a year. Pop culture was, remember the Met Gala? Black dandyism came into the conversation. It became a vehicle for cultural history and identity debates. Linked style to power, history, and self-definition. Sparked viral discourse about representation and credit. Fashion coverage became broader cultural commentary. Because, again, in 2025, everything had to be a political statement. The Met Gala, clothes, that had to be a political statement. You were woke if you wore this. You were not if you wore that. You know, this from an administration that made a red hat a political statement. In fun news, 2025 was the year of the Labubu. You know, we remember things like the year of the pet rock, the year of the Cabbage Patch Kid. Well, the year of the Labubu. Say it with me. Labubu. Labubu. I bet most of you don't even know what a frickin' Labubu is. I mean, it's a doll, but you don't know where it came from. It's a fairy story, and I don't mean a gay guy story. I mean a story about fairies. Also, 2025 became the year that content creators became more important than journalists. That's really sad. That content creators became as credible as trained journalists. Suddenly they're at the White House, they're in the press pools, they're on the red carpets, they're getting TV shows, and their claim to fame, they're influencers. I mean, look, it was also the year that Oscar decided to no longer be on ABC, which it has been on since the 1970s. It's now going to be on YouTube. The Oscars, the Academy Awards, will be on YouTube. That speaks volumes to YouTube being an actual network. You know, YouTube is not governed like a network, but it is a network. And this proves that it's a network. So yeah, so that was a big story. And then, I don't want to say possibly the most influential or important story of the year, but it's certainly the one story that's going to affect our future more than anything out of 2025. Do you know what that is? You're going to guess? In the chat room, you're going to guess? The one story, the one thing, because there are billions of stories about it, but the one thing that emerged as a newborn infant that suddenly grew up fast, that will affect the entire future, our whole future of humanity. The entire future of humanity was beginning to be shaped by this one thing in 2025. And you know what that is? AI. AI. There is no doubt that AI and the exponential growth of it in 2025 was the political, cultural, scientific, medical, social, everything breakthrough that you can think of. Now, granted, there's been AI before 2025, but in 2025, we got ChatGPT. In 2025, we got AI video. In 2025, we got AI posting our socials for us. We got AI doing almost everything for us. And it's just starting. It's just beginning. But certainly, the biggest phenomenon of 2025 was the proliferation and advent of AI. This is the year that they will remember it for. This is the year they will look back and say, well, when it all started back in 2025, AI. Think about that. In this year of horror, we also had possibly the biggest technological advance, I want to say in 100 years. Just an enormous advance. And that came out of this year. This year. All right, we got more stories to talk about, including movies and films and music on this New Year's Eve edition of the Karel Cast. I hope you're going to celebrate safely and sanely, and I hope that you're going to wake up tomorrow morning refreshed and renewed for 2026. See how it goes.
It's broadcasting from a completely different point of view. Yours. Listen daily to the Karel Cast on your favorite streaming service.
Showtime is here, no time to fear. Karel is so near because showtime is here. So on with the show, let's give it a go. Karel is the one that you need to know. Now it's showtime.
There were headlines that rocked the world in 2025, and there were things that have happened that we're going to be feeling for years and years to come. It is the New Year's Eve Best Of Show with Karel. Stay tuned.
Uncensored, unfiltered, unhinged. It's the Karel Cast. Listen daily on your favorite streaming service.
You know, I am Karel. It is the Karel Cast, and things happen so fast now that earth-shattering stories, where in any other year for year-end, we'd be talking about only 3 or 5 stories because they were huge, and now there's 100 because they just fly at you. For instance, remember when Vladimir Zelensky met with Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and it just went so south? Remember that? Oh my God, it was horrifying. I mean, I remember it vividly. It was terrible. The lunch the next day was canceled. Oh, what a moment that was. They got in a fight right there in front of the media. Also in 2025, Facebook and Instagram announced they would stop fact-checking. If you don't think that influences culture, you're wrong. But that happened this year. Facebook and Instagram, they're the same company, said that they were no longer going to fact check. I mean, that's mind-boggling. That's mind-boggling. Then there was a large-scale drone attack known as Operation Spiderweb, which was launched by the Ukraine against Russia. It pissed Russia off so much that they ended up bombing the hell out of Kyiv. Iran was attacked by Israel because of their alleged nuclear efforts. Remember that? Remember when Israel attacked Iran and we were all like, oh God, World War III, here it is. I'd forgotten about that one. I really had. The Dalai Lama spoke about a successor. He's going to step down. We got a new pope, Pope Leo the 14th. He became the first American pope. That happened in 2025, the first American pope. And then Pope Francis died on Easter. Then remember we had the astronauts that were stranded up there for just months and months and months and months. And then, of course, they got back home. But it took a while. And then there was Doge. D-O-G-E, remember? Came in, chainsaw, Elon Musk, ketamine. Said it was going to cut trillions and save trillions of dollars and all of that. It ain't even in existence anymore. That's something. Oh, yes, there was the first pig-to-human transplant of a kidney. I don't know how the pig felt about it. But they seem to think that is the way. That pigs, for some reason, we can genetically modify them. They're most like humans, and yet we eat them. I don't. But they're genetically modifying pigs to grow organs for us. And they grew a kidney. Didn't turn out as they totally would have liked, but it gave them enough promise to move ahead. Myanmar's second largest city was hit by a 7.7 earthquake this year. That was devastating. I remember when that occurred. Los Angeles wildfires. Now, that's, for many, going to be their biggest story because their houses are gone. We all watched it live on TV. It was horrific. Watching Runyon Canyon start on fire when I had friends that lived right next to it. Watching the flames head towards Hollywood Boulevard. Pacific Palisades wiped out. Malibu wiped out. An urban center, Altadena, devastated. A giant urban center caught fire and didn't have the resources to deal. I hope we've learned. You know, I hope in 2026 and forward, we will learn how to deal with fires in urban centers, because the fires that was something. That was a story. And we all watched it live. All right, when we come back, we've got many more stories to talk about, and we'll talk about the top movies and television shows of the year. All of this on my New Year's Eve year-end look back on 2025. I hope you're having a good time. I hope you're going to have a good time tonight. Or this afternoon. And I hope you're going to stay safe and see us into 2026, which is just hours away. Bye, 2025. It's been fun. Bye. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. Boy, I wouldn't. If I were a year, I would not want to be 2025. People are going to look at it like, oh, what a year you were. Ugh.
If you're not visiting reallykarel.com daily, you're missing out. Get the podcast videos and the blog, including recipes, at reallykarel.com. That's really KAREL.com.
Showtime is here, no time to fear. Karel is so near because showtime is here. So on with the show, let's give it a go. Karel is the one that you need to know.
You know, I was just thinking, if all the years got together and had a party, there'd be a separate table for a few years, you know, a few bad years. 2001 for me. What was one of your worst years, other than 2025? But I mean personally, what was one of your worst years? 2001, obviously, for me, when Andrew died. And then I lost my job at KFI, and that was a doozy of a year. But personally, I'm not talking about, you know, politics or whatever. Personally, what was one of your worst years? Put it down below. Put a comment down below. But also, what was one of your best years? Certainly 1988-89 when I met Andrew, one of my best years. This year for me was the first time I actually saw my music chart again. It had been decades since my music charted. So that was, and this was the first year that I ever had a song chart that I wrote. That's a big deal for me in 2025. What were some of the milestones? Did you have milestones? I mean, it wasn't all bad this year. Yeah, the news was all bad, but my life wasn't all bad. 2025 had many, ups. It did. Like Thea recording a song I wrote and it going, up to the top 5. I Danced Because and how well received it was, and Do You Want to Funk, and working with Jeannie Tracy. And so 2025, had its moments. What were some of yours? I'd love to read them. Put them down below, okay? Justin Trudeau resigned in 2025. He stepped down as the prime minister so he could date Katy Perry. Why are you resigning? I really want to date Katy Perry. Okay, whatever. The Blatten Glacier collapsed. That was a big deal. A catastrophic glacier collapsed in the Swiss Alps, devastating the village of Blatten on May 28, 2025, buried an entire village under a massive landslide of ice and rock. It was triggered when the Birch Glacier gave way after being destabilized by millions of cubic meters of debris from earlier rock falls. There was a timely evacuation, so the people weren't in the village, but the village was swallowed up. That was something. 19 countries are restricted or banned from entering the U.S. at the order of Donald Trump. That's a huge story from 2025, and one that rocked the world. 19 countries. The directive placed a full ban on individuals from 12 nations, including Afghanistan, Iran, Somalia. Cuba, Venezuela were placed under partial restrictions as part of these new border security. Of course, if you're rich, you can buy a gold card and just get past all of this. The era of private spaceflight took another major step in 2025 with the launch of Axiom Mission 4 to the International Space Station. The mission lifted off on June 25th. It was significant for carrying the first Polish and Indian astronauts in decades as part of its 4-person crew. The collaboration between Axiom, SpaceX, and NASA also marked the first modern flight of the new Crew Dragon capsule Grace. The capsule was called Grace. Also this year, Hungary left the International Criminal Court. It was politically charged, of course. It was announced as Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was wanted under an active ICC arrest warrant, arrived for a state visit in Hungary. So in order for him to visit there, they had to leave the court or they would have had to arrest him. So they left the court. A peace agreement was struck between the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Rwanda after 37 years. However, we know that tensions are still high and fighting is still going on. Federal troops were deployed in LA against anti-ICE protesters, and then Portland, and then Chicago, and then New York. I think New York. No, Washington, D.C. That was a scary headline. A lot of these headlines are scary. Cambodia and Thailand started fighting this year. That's, not something we wanted. Texas flooded. Remember that? I remember it. In July, Texas just flooded. And the camp where the kids were, all the death and mayhem that happened there. That, for Texas, was the equivalent of the fires. Have a fire and water. But yeah, that was something, the Texas flood. A military helicopter and a passenger plane collided. That was in January. The aircraft carrying 64 people was on its way to Reagan National Airport. Remember that? Most of you forgot. Remember, the plane was flying in and it hit the helicopter, and then bam, that was it. 3 service members on board, they crashed into the water. Remember that? I bet if you ask people, hey, in 2025, did an airplane run into a helicopter? They'd be like, no. Yeah, it did. Remember, we watched it again. Something we watched live on TV. Played over and over and over again. And yet we forgot. Then, of course, we blew up Iranian nuclear facilities. We launched missiles on Iran in 2025. These stories be wearing me out. Really. He renamed the Gulf of Mexico this year. He called it the Gulf of America. Remember, that was a big story. I don't think anyone pays attention to it. I don't think anyone calls it that. But he did it. So these are just some of the big stories of 2025. I just can't, AP, if you go to their year in review, it's even more depressing. It's even more depressing. FIFA, remember they gave Trump a peace award? Oh yeah, that was something. We have Bad Bunny being named to do the Super Bowl in 2025. First time a Puerto Rican non-English speaking act. Although the Super Bowl is, coming up. Today, tomorrow, there's a lot of games. A lot of games tomorrow. So that's big news for 2025. What else? What other key moments and trends were there? Let's see. AP film writers ranked the best movies. What do they have to say about the best movies of 2025? Everyone keeps talking about this Timothée Chalamet movie where Marty's supreme, but none of us have seen it. Oh yeah, we lost Robert Redford. We lost Diane Keaton. Oh, we lost so many fabulous people. We lost Jane Goodall. We lost Gene Hackman. Remember that? His wife got the hantavirus and died, and then he pretty much died of a broken heart sitting on his porch. Oh, I'd forgotten that story. That was something. Maybe we should switch and talk. These are depressing me. I don't want to be depressed on New Year's Eve. Let's talk something more fun, like movies and television and all of that. Because, boy, some of these stories, they're really depressing me. I mean, I don't know about you. Charlie Kirk. That's certainly one of the biggest stories of 2025. Charlie Kirk. Val Kilmer passed away as well, not just Robert Redford. But the assassination of Charlie Kirk, that certainly shaped, our narrative, our country. It shaped a lot. Rob Reiner being murdered. Didn't have that on our bingo card for, 2025. Did you? I certainly didn't. What a year. Wow, hearing all this is just real. Putting all this together in one spot. It's no wonder we're exhausted. We should all just sleep. We should just go to bed. 2025 was exhausting. For the arts, it was the year that we saw The Pit. Noah Wyle came back to television in what is being hailed as the best show of 2025. I adored it. A medical show, Noah Wyle. It was fabulous. It was wonderful. The Lowdown on TV saw Reservation Dogs creator Sterling Harrow brought another Oklahoma story to life. It's called The Lowdown. If you haven't seen it, it's on Disney Plus and Hulu and FX. Really great show. The film Black Bag. Many people have forgotten that. Cate Blanchett, written by David Koepp. Michael Fassbender. That was wonderful. Alien Earth. That's certainly one of the best TV shows this year. If y'all haven't seen that show, oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. And The Residents was picked by many, including NPR, as one of the best shows of the year, and Netflix canceled it. Same with Boots. In an effort to get approval for their big merger, they canceled The Residents and Boots. And The Resident was so cute. It was a whodunit at the White House. And the character, Cordelia Cupp, I could watch more and more and more and more of her. So good. What else? Mountainhead. Oh, that movie. Oh, it was about all those rich people that pretty much engineer the end of the world. And then there was the movie that really ripped my guts out, The Perfect Neighbor. That's on Netflix if you haven't seen it. It was a documentary, or was it a movie? I think it's a movie. And it really, God, this white lady just kills this black lady for no reason. For no reason. And there were all these events that should have led, people to know that it was going to happen. But then for film, we had A House of Dynamite. And the most important part of that movie and why it was important in 2025, it showed that in order to react, they only have about 20 minutes. So basically, the decision to end the world as we know it, if they detect a missile launch, that decision is made in about 18 minutes. Can you imagine having to decide whether or not the world is going to end as you know it in 18 minutes? I wouldn't want that. Weapons, that was a really good horror movie. Not as good as Sinners. Sinners is my favorite of the year. My favorite movie of the year was Sinners. It had music. It had great performances. It had Michael B. Jordan. Oh, sweet Jesus. And it was just so innovative for a vampire movie. I hope it wins Oscars. I hope that it ends up winning Oscars. But Weapons was equally as good. And Weapons was a big analogy for school shootings. Of course, 2025 was the year of the Bondi Beach shooting in Australia. They'll remember that forever. We've already forgotten. It was 2 weeks ago. Most of you have forgotten. I have not. Jews have not. And the people of Australia have not. But that was there. Frankenstein with my future husband, Jacob Elordi. It's one of the best movies of the year. I loved it. A great retelling. The same with Superman. I loved that. Twinless, I loved. Dylan O'Brien and James Sweeney. That was a great movie. Really low-key independent film, but seeing Dylan O'Brien play gay just made my heart sing. Blue Lights. That's been named one of the best shows of the year. It's on BritBox. And it's a cop show. I watch 2 shows on BritBox now. That and Silent Witness, which season 28, 29, something like that. Great show if you haven't seen it. The Traitors, I hear, is really great. It's on a lot of year-end lists. Hosted by Alan Cummings. I haven't really seen it. One Battle After Another is being hailed as one of the greatest movies of the year. I don't think it is. This is where I disagree with the people that make all the lists. I thought it was okay. But the greatest movie of the year? No. I'm going to go on a limb here and say no. What movies or TV did you love this year? Put them down below. I'd love to hear from you. Am I missing any? Are you disagreeing with some of these? Have you not seen any of them? A lot of them are streaming, but some of you don't pay for streaming. Some of you don't, like the streaming, but entertainment's being big for me, so, talk about it. All right, we'll finish up the last segment of the year. Oh my God! The last segment of the year is next.
Patreon is the way to show you care. Subscribe today if you dare. Keep the show on there. Patreon is the way. Now it's showtime.
Wow. It just hit me. It really did just hit me that this is the last segment of the year. We have done 4 shows a week for 52 weeks. So 208 shows, basically. Wow. Wow. Actually, right about 200. There were some I missed. I'm sorry. But I've done 200 shows this year. 200 times that you welcomed me into your homes, your cars, your headphones. 200 times, including tonight, that I've sat here and commented and, said all kinds of things to you. You stuck with me through all the medical anxiety. Yesterday's show, maybe you watched it, maybe you didn't, maybe you tuned out. But having been at the clinic where Eric Dane, went. And this was the year of my ALS scare. This was the year of the repercussions from last year of that damn shot. And so on this last segment of my 200th show, I just can't thank you enough. It's really the patrons. It's the patrons. And I can't thank you patrons enough. I would not have made it through the year without you. You literally paid the bills. And, you made it easier for me to be me this year. I can't, I'm getting all, New Year's Eve makes me so fucking emotional. I can't, I had more movies I wanted to tell you about, more music, but the final segment of the year, we have think of all the shit we have talked about this year. Painful stuff. Stuff that infuriated us. And then happy stuff. Fun interviews and fun topics. And we've gone through it all together. You and me, you and I, with Ember. And I'm going to be so blessed if I can do it again next year. If we make it through another year to another New Year's Eve. If Trump doesn't come after me, if MAGA doesn't come after me, if I'm, look, the future, on this New Year's Eve, I look to the future this next year and I may not be in this room come next New Year's Eve. I may be in a different house here in Vegas. I may be in a different state in the United States, or I may be in a different country, or I may be dead. You know, it's a possibility, and you can't rule it out. So that's exciting to think about. You know what I mean? Isn't it exciting to think that we don't know where we're going to be next New Year's Eve? Trump could be dead. He could be. Just like I could be or you could be. He's old, he's sick, and he's pissing off a lot of Venezuelan drug cartels. The Democrats could win the House and Senate in the year to come. And come next New Year's Eve, we could be in a completely different place politically. But I know that we're going to talk about it right here, just like we've done 200 times this year. Wow. I am emotional right now. I am. The gravity of the day, you know, and the thought that going through all of these stories, you know, all this, and we just touched the surface of the stories. There were so many other things that happened. We just can't even. There were fun shows like Murderbot with my future husband, Alexander Skarsgård. There was Adolescents and Sinners, and there was Pluribus. Very interesting show on Apple TV. A lot of these shows reflecting the cultural changes going on right now in our country. But wow, 200 times you and I have sat here and tried to figure it all out together. You know, tonight, New Year's Eve, maybe you're alone. I will be. I'll be alone. At midnight, I'll be asleep in bed with Ember by myself. I may go to the pub by myself. If Steve doesn't want to go, he still hasn't told me if he wants to go. I may be alone. It's okay. It's fine. Because A, I get to be with you every day. And B, you know, we are born alone, we die alone, so being alone on New Year's Eve is okay. But I'm emotional because every year takes its toll. And this year took a toll on me. It really did. Emotionally, this was a heavy year for me because of the country. Never in my life, in 63 years, have I lived through a year in my country like this. And I've been gay under Reagan and Bush, but never in my life have I lived through a year like this. And I can't tell you how I would have gone insane if I didn't have you to go through it with, and to hear your comments, and to get support from people like Jim Schnabel and Rachel Capper and Randy Radar and all the others, Sue Yeager, and there's countless others, Darren Holmquist and Phineas, and just so many, Sandy, and just there's so many people, all the chatters, Babetta, just all the different people. Your support got me through this year. It got me through. And I hoped I helped get you through this year. Just a little hour a day. I hope that it helped you make it. Now, I don't know what's coming our way next year. I don't. Could be good, could be bad. Could be world ending. Could be world war. I don't know. But I do know if we had the strength and the courage and the wherewithal to get through this year, that we'll get it. We'll make it. We'll make it together. So for the last time in 2025, I am Karel. Be who you want to be, so long as it doesn't hurt anybody. Thank you so much for a marvelous year. Here's hoping next New Year's Eve, Ember is by my side. You're in front of me in a camera. I love you all. Thank you very much. Happy New Year.
It's broadcasting from a completely different point of view. Yours. Listen daily to the Karel Cast on your favorite streaming service.